I am truly honored and excited to moderate this panel called Capital and Its Expectations. So of course, the space would be nothing without the people behind the people who are starting these companies, the people who are funding these companies. And I had the pleasure of meeting everyone who's on the panel today while doing research for my dissertation at Harvard, and now I'm writing a book about this whole space. And people always ask me, like, what was the most interesting part of doing this dissertation? And I always say is talking to the investors, because these are the people who decide, like, who's gonna make it in the space. What are we looking for? Because none of this is possible, of course, without the money. And so I'm honored to introduce all of you. So I'll just give a little background about each of you, and then I'll ask you to sort of do a self-introduction with a little more detail, 5 minutes each. So let's just start with Dan. Dan is a managing partner at Innovis Asset Management and a senior venture partner at New Crop Capital, a leading investment firm that has provided early stage funds for many of the companies you all know and love, including Beyond Meat, Good Catch, Miyoko's, Alpha Foods, Purple Carrot, and many others. Dan, I'll never forget spending Expo West with you. That was quite an adventure that weekend, and it's almost impossible to imagine, given how many people were there that weekend, like how soon we'll get back to that. Lisa is the CEO and managing director of Straight Out Capital, another leading venture capital fund in the plant-based space with investments all across the globe in food tech, including Kite Hill, Beyond Meat, Good Catch, Miyoko's, and many others. And Lisa also founded the Glass Wall Syndicate, which is a network of funders active in the space who are really behind basically most of what's going on in this space. And Lisa, I'm always amazed. Every event I go to, you were there and you're talking about the deal flow. So we're honestly very honored to have you. And then last but not least is TK, who's the co-founder and partner at Powerplant Ventures, an investment fund that supports plant-centered companies with investments in Beyond Meat, Thrive Market, Ripple, and others. He's also the co-founder of Veggie Girl. So we have him to thank for expanding, fast casual plant-based options, which we're all extremely grateful for in California. But then also it was super great to be at Harvard when you expanded to Boston as well. So, okay, so before we begin, after that short introduction, I would love for each of you actually to take a turn to introduce yourselves, what you do, and then also just maybe give us a bit of a background about how you personally got involved with being part of a mission-driven investment firm. So maybe we'll start with Dan.
Thank you, Nina. Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. My background, I was born and raised in Mexico. And for the past 20-some years, I've been involved with food companies in one way or another, either from a corporate banking point of view, from a logistics. I had a couple of food startups that did not go well. I also managed a creative agency with a lot of food service and CPG clients. And I love food. I love the food industry, many parts about it, not just the culinary arts, but the collaborative nature of the industry. And as I was looking for my next challenge in life, I wanted to leverage this experience, but I also wanted it to have a part of technology involved and some sort of positive social impact. And that's when I started learning about what's out there. And I just got drawn into alternative proteins, and I saw that they could fit into an existing infrastructure and really have a significant change in the world. And that led me on a chase to see how I could get into the industry. And one thought was as an entrepreneur, but I thought I could actually leverage my skills better. And I started looking out, had a wonderful conversation with now my business partner, Chris Kerr. And after a couple of calls and a couple of beers, he asked me to join him a few years ago, and it's been great ever since. Thrilled to be here, thrilled for what is happening, and to just be a part of a great industry, learning alongside people such as TK and Lisa, who helped me out a lot.
Wonderful. Thank you for that introduction, Dan. And Lisa, we'll go with you next, please. Oh, you're on mute, Lisa. Sorry about that. Oh, at the bottom, there's a little microphone symbol. Yeah, it says mute. Dana, can we have some help with that? Let's see. Okay, did you unmute already on your own screen? You might have to refresh your browser then, potentially. Okay, hopefully that works. TK, in the meantime, do you want to maybe start with your introduction and then we'll go to Lisa afterwards?
Sure. So I'm TK Pillan, and so my background started in technology. I went to MIT undergrad and started a systems development e-commerce integration firm in the mid-90s that did quite well during the first run-up of the e-commerce internet boom, and then I sold it in 2004, and that's when I started my plant-based journey. I was really focused on how do I create a business that helps lead the country in the right direction in terms of health and sustainability, and started doing more research around that, and really learned about all of the benefits of plant-based foods, and data was just starting to come out to support all of the tremendous impact, both from a health and sustainability, that a plant-based diet can have. And so I became a plant-based eater myself, and quickly became a personal believer based on losing about 20 pounds, having my cholesterol go from over 200 to under 140, and just really starting to learn about what's behind the curtain in terms of how meat is produced and dairy is produced, and all the negative impacts of industrial animal farming, and so really became passionate about really bringing to life a concept that would help people eat more plant-based foods, and that's what inspired me to start Veggie Grill back in 2006, and that was some of the early days of the plant-based movement, and but we luckily, our mission was to really create a fun, friendly, approachable way for people to discover and really enjoy plant-based foods, and so we were able to put the right pieces together to make that a success, and have it grow now across the country. And through that process, I really became fully embraced in the plant-based movement from a product standpoint as well, and started seeing all the great products that were starting to come to market, and the continued consumer demand and the innovation that was happening, and we had built up our team at Veggie Grill to the point where I was able to take a step back and move into a board role, and start up Powerplant Ventures to really continue to create impact around helping these emerging plant-based food brands with capital and with expertise around building brands and building their companies and building their teams. And so it's been that started in 2015, and that was really where I think the plant-based movement hit that second level of acceleration. And so it's been a great ride, and so now I actually split my time between Powerplant Ventures and Veggie Grill.
Fantastic. Lisa, you have perfect timing. You came in right as TK finished his introduction. Lisa, can you hear us? Oh, okay, she's gone again. I'm not sure. So if the IT could help Lisa out in the meantime, I think I'll just go on to asking some questions that we've prepared ahead of time, and then we'll have some audience questions. So we're just waiting for Lisa. I see her coming. Maybe she can come in. Just 1 second. Let's see. Okay, Lisa, can you hear us?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic.
All right.
Yes.
She's back.
Okay. Yeah. Now I can't hear you, but that's okay.
Oh.
At least if you can hear me, I'll fix it while Nina asks the next question.
Okay.
All right. So for me, I've always been involved in food, pretty similar to Dan actually, where I started out my career very involved in how do you manage and grow and sell food from the beginning to the end. So my background is actually in engineering, and I worked for General Mills. And so I learned, the whole process of how do you make food and the logistical systems that support the food system, all the way to a Cheerios being in your cupboard. And then from there, I moved on to Procter & Gamble to really learn more about the consumer demand part, about the financial part, the P&L, the R&D, the development. How do you run a small brand or a company? And I had a little bit of a matrix moment because I saw the documentary Meet Your Meat. And after I saw Meet Your Meat, I had an awakening, I guess, about the realities of the majority of the animal-based food system. And I decided that I needed to do something about it. And initially that showed up as me, influencing the internal Procter & Gamble food system to have more vegetarian and vegan options when they served and catered for the company. But eventually what I realized that it wasn't just a personal choice, that we could take the time to convert people into plant-based by, you know, being around them or giving them different foods to try. But we really needed a mass scale, exponential change into more plants because the food system is so broken. And at that point, I realized that the private world, i.e. startups, it would be an incredibly powerful way to do that. And then I moved over to the venture capital side to help power, aid, support, and collaborate with amazing entrepreneurs to update the food system.
Okay, wonderful. That's great. So Lisa, you still can't hear us, right? Just to double check. You can't hear us. Okay, so we will figure out that audio issue, but just picking up on what Lisa just had mentioned, you know, just to kind of give us some background, I'm wondering if we can talk about, you know, how VCs have evolved from rarely investing in companies like this to now heavily investing in plant-based startups and how this change occurred. So I'll direct this question to Dan, since you know, were there from the beginning with New Crop, and New Crop is one of the major players in the space. So I would love for you to talk on that question, please.
Thank you, Nina. I think the evolution began before me, but I think it is part of a broader shift in the U.S. economy and in the global economy. First, food became more important in the U.S. in the past 15 to 20 years. You saw the rise of celebrity chefs. You saw the rise of people just being more interested in food, be it from other countries or how food is made. You had a lot of television channels that started addressing this. So the population as a whole began to be more interested in food. And as this happened, there started to be an evolution into the healthier for you with the rise of organics at the beginning of the 2000s. And that has continued to evolve. If we just see the growth in Expo West, from what I thought was a big show in 2001, which was the best time I saw it, to now, it has just exploded several times over. And VCs follow opportunities. We are now in a space where people in general understand and are interested in the relationship between food and health, understand the relationship between food and the challenges to the environment, understand the challenges about sustainability, and also the way the industrial animal agriculture has evolved. So if you add these 4 points and you just pop social media into it, it has been an explosion in interest, which was led by consumers, followed, I think, by a couple of, you know, very brave entrepreneurs. I'm talking about the Tofurkeys of the world and the first generation of companies that had to bang very loudly on the doors of retailers and say, this is something that people will eat. And many times they were laughed off, but they persisted. And I think we are now in that second or third generation where there's additional capital that recognizes that this is no longer a small trend or a niche, but rather a solid category that has wings. I don't expect the world to become vegan, but I do believe that there is a chance that most consumers around the world will incorporate alternatives into their daily diets, be it in alternative to dairy, to meats, at least once or twice a day.
Wonderful. Yeah, we're having Seth from Tofurkey join us later on for a talk. So we're excited to hear about from him about the future.
He is a giant.
He's a giant in the industry, definitely. Okay, and Lisa, kind of coming off of that point, you know, as an investor in this space, how are the investments in the alternative protein space? How are they different from traditional investments? What should, you know, students who potentially want to be entrepreneurs in this space know going into this space? We're still having trouble hearing you, actually. Okay, I'm going to direct that question maybe to TK next, or maybe I can ask you a different one, TK, while we're waiting for Lisa to set up her.
You're muted, I believe.
That's what I see as well. She says she's not, so I'm not sure. Maybe if you could try putting on headphones, that would make a difference. I don't know. Interesting. Well, this is the brave new world of Hopin. So, TK, I'm actually gonna move on to the question that I had lined up for you. So, as an entrepreneur, you bring in a kind of different background than other investors in the space. So how does your entrepreneurial experience your investing decisions at Powerplant Ventures?
Yeah, I think from an investment standpoint, you're looking at similar factors in terms of what is the actual product, the impact, the team, their ability to bring it to life. Really, probably where my role is a little different is after the investment. I can certainly empathize more with what it takes to build a team and get your product to get that initial traction, and just some of the ups and downs of the world of starting a company. So I think that's where the difference is.
And can I ask you, what in some of your portfolio companies, what does Powerplant Ventures offer its portfolio companies besides capital?
Yeah, it's really support and guidance. I think Dan mentioned brave entrepreneurs. I think all entrepreneurs are brave, right? You have to jump in and take a risk and think you can create something that didn't exist before, and really fill a need. And it's a mountain that you have to climb, and we as investors can't climb it for you. You have to be ready to climb it. But we can help be that Sherpa, be a guide to help you hopefully not hit some of those points where you're going to slip back down, and help you maybe climb a little quicker when you have questions and need additional viewpoints of people who have seen a few other people climb the mountain and have maybe climbed it ourselves. But every mountain's a little different. So, but at the end of the day, that's our goal is to guide and support.
And this is a question that maybe both of you can answer, but maybe I'll start with Dan. What do you look for in a team? When you're looking for an entrepreneur or a team that has the resourcefulness, and of course experience matters, but really how can you tell who has that courage and that ability to withstand all the ups and downs?
So for me, the top of the list, obviously you want someone who believes in what they're doing, who brings a unique point, who is hardworking. But for me, the line in the sand that I draw is on people who have a collaborative nature. Because I think food, as opposed to maybe many other industries, food, you will be playing with a lot of people. You will need to convince co-manufacturers that your product is worth making. You will need to go out and talk with distributors and with retailers and convince them to stock it. And that does not happen in a vortex. It doesn't happen by itself. So you need to know people. And the more you network, people will help. Obviously, there is competition, but at the same time, everybody wants to help each other out. So that collaborative nature for me is the top of the list.
Wonderful. TK, do you want to speak on that as well? When you have all these different options, how can you tell, especially as an entrepreneur, background as an entrepreneur?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you certainly, as Dan said, passion is number one, because if you're not deeply passionate about what you're bringing to market, it's going to be easy to give up, because there are going to be a lot of challenges and hurdles to get through. And your ability to build a team is certainly important. So seeing what you've done to date, have you brought on some partners? Have you created some partnerships? What have you done to bootstrap this without capital?
Yeah, I can hear, but now the camera icon is completely.
Oh, okay. Now we hear Lisa. Go ahead, TK. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Yeah, we can certainly.
It's unmuted.
So let's see. So we're talking about, so we're looking for passion. We're looking for people who have demonstrated their ability to put some pieces together on their own, whether it's initial product market track. Yeah, we can hear you, Lisa.
Oh, okay. Sorry, they can hear me.
We got you.
Are you there, Lisa?
Now she muted.
Sorry about
No,
that.
we're gonna move just with the audio. We're not.
Okay, that sounds
We can only get one of the two things. So either you can see my face
Okay.
or hear my voice. So we're gonna go.
We
with
want your voice, so we will come back to you after the day's finished. Yes, and we already have a lot of audience questions coming in too, so we'll move to that after we talk to Lisa. TK, please finish your thoughts. Sorry about that.
Sure. Yeah. So passion and the ability to really be an entrepreneur. You got to demonstrate that you can put pieces together quickly, find the right people to work with you, whether those are business partners with your company or suppliers or people who are helping you with your packaging, whatever it is, you need to really do whatever you can to move it forward with whatever resources you have.
Mm-hmm. So resourcefulness sounds like it's a key attribute. Yeah. So Lisa, you can hear us now, right?
I can. Yep.
Great. Okay. So I think the question that I had been asking you earlier was, what expectations do VCs have for investments in alternative proteins, and how do those differ from traditional investments, especially with your experience coming from the traditional food world? I'd love to speak on that.
And so the expectations from the venture capitalists are going to be pretty similar in terms of what size of breakthrough are these companies providing and bringing to the market. Venture capitalists really go for the companies that are shooting for the moon, the companies that are going to be able to be the beyond meat of tomorrow. So we're really always looking forward and looking to the companies that cannot only do a double hit, but really can do the whole home run. So that's completely similar. I think where the mission capital diverges a little bit in the how we do that. So we tend to be much more collaborative partners around the table. We tend to be a lot more patient capital. We tend to collaborate and work with our companies for longer. There's so many different VCs and companies that I've been in that as soon as the company either goes past a certain amount of time or hits the first roadblock, they completely jump ship. And they stop answering messages. They assume the company's not going to make it, and they leave. And so what I've noticed is that the colleagues that are in this call today, as well as my other colleagues that are in the mission and investing world, we tend to stick around and we tend to really try to help and provide our own resources to help these companies succeed.
Great. Yeah. No, I think that's. Of course, I think that part of the issue is that the timelines are so short in the traditional investing world, and when there's a mission involved, it sounds like there's probably more kind of investment because it's not just about the money; it's also like a broader vision. So one of the questions that we're getting from the audience is probably one that I'll direct to Dan. So for sustainable food tech to make a global impact, price points need to be competitive with current options. Can you share your perspective on the balance between realizing return on your investment, so high product margin products limited to an affluent audience, and enabling global accessibility, so having products that have lower margins with a larger audience? So kind of striking that balance.
Thank you. That's a great question from Michelle. I was reading it on the side. Well, Michelle, I think in general, in food, you get economies of scale. And those economies of scale come from different parts of the value chain. Everything from the more you grow, the cheaper you get your raw materials, the lower your tolling or manufacturing costs, the more accessibility you have in terms of distribution. And I think what we aim for is for our companies to grow and to bring these products, the price points of these products down. Yes, they were niche in the past, but after certain parts or certain points, we can see that the price points really start dropping. And it's not necessarily that the companies are having excessive gross margins. I haven't really seen the case. I have seen the case where certain retailers, because there's limited supply of a particular brand, will up their internal margins. But our focus is on our companies to continue to scale and to continue to expand their distribution so that more and more people can get the products. The recent price drops at Impossible really speak to this. I think recently, a week or two ago, they announced a 15% drop in their food service pricings, which is huge. And that is where we want all our portfolios to get to the point where they can continue to drop, and not just be on par with animal analogs, but actually be more affordable. And we believe that will be the case. And much more so if we were to consider all the hidden costs, damage to the environment, all the subsidies that animal agriculture receives.
Do you have a sense of the timeline on that? Like when they will be comparable or potentially cheaper?
Well, I think they're starting to. I think Impossible will be there soon as well as Beyond. And I think some of the other companies, the advances in manufacturing are so big, and the amount of resources that are being pushed into transforming manufacturing facilities around the world is just very impressive. So I do see a lot of price parities happening in the next 2 to 5 years.
Okay, so great. So I would also love to ask an audience question to TK, which is what plant-based product or approach has a potential to have outsized climate or nutrition impact, but you passed on it because it didn't look profitable enough? Did you have a case like that in your portfolio? Or if that's not the case for TK, if Dan and Lisa, you're welcome to also chime in to this question.
Yeah, I think there's we talked about patient capital, and certain funds, how they're structured, can be more patient than others. And there's some real early stage. Cell-based meat is still pretty early, and the timeline to get those to market and commercially viable. We saw some of those 4 or 5 years ago that we had to pass on because we just didn't believe they could come to market in a time frame that our fund was set up to achieve its returns. So I'd say on the cell-based side, there's a lot of interesting activity. Seafood especially, I think, is pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. Dan or Lisa, do you want to speak to this question as well? Something that you had to pass on because it didn't seem profitable enough in the moment. You have any stories from the field for us?
I can share one. So this is a category that we do have some investments in, but the ingredient category is one that is a tough market, because even though ingredients help drive some of the efficiencies that we were talking about before, so it's not only, hey, you only have these 2 sources of protein, let's say soy and peas, to make your products from, you have a variety of other products. And so as an enabler to that opportunity, we wanted to invest in ingredients in the marketplace, but ingredients in general are not incredibly profitable. So it's been a category that has the potential to really unlock a lot of other companies by giving them more choice in terms of ingredients. But the marketplace as a whole doesn't really reward ingredient companies as high as, for example, a company that absorbs a very unique and amazing ingredient, like chickpeas, for example, as an isolate.
I have one regret, and I think somebody here invested in them, and is an Israeli yogurt company. And it was when we thought that the yogurt category was just overly competitive and too mature, and did not really think that the company could take it to the next level. And I'm very thrilled for them to see that they are continuing to evolve and to grow. So yeah, you miss out on a lot. I think investor, you need to be to have your frameworks, and it's better to miss out on some good opportunities than to overexpand yourself and take too much on. And it's finding that balance. So
yeah, but as investors, I think that we definitely always have regrets, because you always wonder, for sure, no matter what, even if you did invest or you didn't invest, it's always a level of, should I, should not, shouldn't I? Because we look at so many companies that it's impossible that you're going to let some buy that ended up being amazing companies.
That's actually honestly something that I wanted to ask about, because I'm just somebody who entertains a lot of counterfactuals. It's probably a factor why I'm an academic, or why I have an academic background. It's always these what ifs. But I guess what I'm wondering is, what are some of the current gaps in the space that need to be filled, and why haven't they been addressed yet? And, I remember talking to my friend Froman Anderson, who's also works at New Crop, and he always says, the holy grail is cheese, and no one's really solved the cheese category. So what are some of the, glaring gaps here that still need to be filled, and why haven't they been? What have they been? Is it the, manufacturing, or is it, what are the sort of barriers there? I'm wondering if all of you could speak to that from your perspective.
I mean, I can give my perspective on this one. I think for us, the largest gap is this lower cost products. I think we mentioned that before, and Dan mentioned Impossible as traveling to continue to be parity price or lower an ideal future would be that these products are so incredibly cheap that anybody could buy them, and they're significantly better for the environment and their health, and obviously for animals. And what we normally see is that the venture companies that come across our desk, most of the times, and not all the times, they are going to be premium priced. And so we leave a pretty large gap in the marketplace where a lot of people can't afford these products. And so our hope is that we will continue to look for companies that can, from the get-go, undercut the price of some of the products out there, the incumbents. And then at the same time, that they will continue to make advances in their manufacturing and inputs, as well as reach economies of scale that will enable them to reach those low prices.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you slightly, another reason is market adoption, right? Veggie burgers have been around for a long time. So that was a clear place to start for additional innovation around better burgers that are plant-based, whereas plant-based seafood, is not something that people have been consuming for very long, and it's a totally new category. There's a huge environmental need for it, but I think there's still a very early, we're early in the consumer side of understanding why you should think about eating plant-based seafood.
I had my first tuna melt from Veggie Grill last week. It was fabulous. So I highly recommend everybody go there. Plug in here for TK.
Nice. Yeah.
I think there's still a lot of opportunity in certain very high level categories. Pork, completely unexplored. A lot of seafood, like TK said, there's still no large scale plant-based shrimp alternative out there. But then if you just walk around supermarket aisles, when we used to go to supermarkets, I think there's a lot of prepared foods, for example, ethnic food. Mexican cuisine is still not has still not been attacked. You go to the freezers and you see all these different kung pao chickens, Thai food, Chinese food. So I think that in terms of people who are looking at the space and asking themselves, is it too crowded? No. However, the benchmark has been raised. Whereas before, a product just needed to be okay for consumers who were willing to sacrifice, no longer the case. You need to think that consumers will not be okay sacrificing in price, in texture. They will to a point in in taste and texture, and they will to a point in price, but availability and ease of use needs to be there as well.
Mm-hmm. That relates to a question we have from the audience from Alex. And Alex says, given the growing number of new companies and brands emerging in this once niche plant-based space, what challenges do you see emerging for emerging companies to compete for shelf space? And I think that's a really relevant question to a lot of our students, I think some of whom want to be entrepreneurs in this space. So, what advice would you give to potentially new companies in this space? Because it does seem like suddenly there's a lot more money in the space, but there's also a lot more young people who are interested in, do you anticipate market consolidation, and when do you expect that to take place? And how would you give advice to people to position themselves in this space?
Yeah, so I would say it's related to what Dan just said. The bar is a lot higher, and you really have to think about what specific subsections have not been met. Dan mentioned ethnic cuisine. Somebody has posted a comment about Mexican, right? You have to think about, hey, where are the needs not being met? And can I create something that's really compelling to meet that need? And there are all these different subsections. We just at Veggie Grow rolled out products from Unreal Deli that has really tackled the deli meat side. Dan mentioned tuna melt. And so there's all these subsections. Cheese is still a big opportunity if you can really tackle the technology around the meltability. And so, yeah, they're out there, but you can't just create another veggie burger. That market, that's not there anymore, or that opportunity.
It's hard to know that, right? Because when Ethan Brown was starting Beyond Meat, maybe somebody would have said a similar comment, but he arrived and said, I'm going to make a totally different type of veggie burger, right? So, veggie burger, which then, they framed it a different way. So, okay, Lisa, I would love to know what emerging trends you see with people trying to tackle this question and trying to position themselves. what's landed on your desk recently that you found really impressive and felt like, wow, like this person really has a great way, has entered this space in a really exciting, new, innovative way?
Yeah, I mean, with any successful company, whether it be in plant-based or technology, you really have to know what target consumer you're going for. Because at the end of the day, of course, you want any, person of any gender, race, whatever, to pick up your product as they're strolling past in the grocery store. But you have to design your product for a target consumer. You have to know who you're going for, because then you can design your products to make sure that you're delighting that consumer. And that could be from a taste standpoint, like Beyond has done. It could be from a health standpoint. There's a lot of competitors out there with clean ingredients, just 1, 2, or 3. It could be from a convenience standpoint. We've been looking at the shelf-stable plant-based category as a very interesting category for, busy people, i.e. all of us. I mean, it could be so many different things that you know who your target consumer is, and you have something that they are desperate to have because you have either amazing ingredients or your ingredients and your communication is right on, or all of the above. And really making sure that you have nailed that down. It's not a, hey, I give it to my friends and it's okay, they say they liked it. Like, it really has to be something that you feel like you are speaking to this consumer very, very, in a very compelling way. And then you have to figure out where they're shopping, so you can start getting some product being sold, and you can prove out product market fit, which is one of the things that is hardest to prove out. One of the things that we see with our companies right now is that it's been an interesting year in 2020 because we started out on the bad side. I mean, our company started struggling to sell because they had a lot of expectations on new products and new SKUs that the retailers were going to take. But guess what? The retailers have shifted to, hey, we're just going to offer the incumbents, just want to make sure we keep them on shelf, and all these new products we're just going to wait. But the consumer started requesting and wanting and asking for and buying more plant-based products for all the reasons we talked already and know about. And so then the retailers started saying, well, okay, I do need this category. I do need more different products in this category. And then they also started speaking directly to consumers from an e-commerce standpoint, because it's about where you find them. The other day, I found a company that sells in Australia through my Pinterest page. And I was absolutely their target consumer. So it's really how you really nail down who your target consumer is, how you go for them, and what is the product proposition that you have that is so superior to everybody else. I mean, we see a lot of the animal-based producer incumbents start to launch plant-based products, and TBD where they're going to end up, but the initial launch has not been an incredible success. Because when you look at the consumer, what is it that they want? They want, companies that they trust. They want a brand story. They want ingredients. They want, there's so many things that they're looking for, and it just wasn't quite right on the bullseye there. So really having a very clear story and a very clear product to back it up is what makes you successful.
Mm-hmm. Is there something that you're all expecting to land on your desk, hoping and dreaming something will land on your desk, and you just haven't seen it?
I mean, I think I'm always looking for more seafood-based products. There's so many different species of fish and crustaceans, and we have some really cool companies out there that are working on this. But just in my opinion, there's just not enough. So whenever I see seafood or egg, definitely amazing cheese, I always get excited.
I miss
good cat.
Really stinky, creamy cheese since I didn't so that would be my personal dream.
Wasn't meltable cheese the thing everybody was really into? Like
That's right.
That was what everybody was super excited. Everybody told me that was the holy grail when I was doing interviews.
But meltable cheese with strong nutritional content, which I think that is the next level. Consumers are embracing this. But as we see, and this is part of a healthier trend globally, so it's not limited to plant-based. I think the new Holy Grail is a great product with a great taste and texture that has high nutritional content.
That's right. Because we shouldn't aim to be the exact replacement to animal-based products. We should be better. So we should be able to deliver the taste, but also the ingredients. It shouldn't have to be a sacrifice from a health standpoint either.
Yeah, it does seem like in the last 5 years, there's been so much emphasis on replicability, sort of the biomimicry, so it really, really like feels and tastes and the olfactory experience of eating the food, but not necessarily followed with also like health considerations, even though there's a bit of a health halo from the notion of plant-based. So I think the next generation of products, it really seems like they have to really be moving in a direction where they're actually nutritious as well. That's what it seems like. It's a trend.
That's right.
Yeah. And I'm wondering some questions about, competing on price when, the game isn't fair, when the playing field is not actually one where they can easily compete on price, because animal-based foods they're actually artificially cheap. So is it possible, do you think, to compete on price when conventional foods are so heavily subsidized? This is obviously a kind of a policy issue, but how do you compete in the space with that structure in mind?
Yeah, I'd say without the government's help, you can only get to a certain set of consumers right now. The consumers that have more disposable income and are willing to pay a little bit more for food that's either healthier or more sustainable or more animal friendly. Where consumers who have to go with the lowest calorie choice, the subsidies from the government support meat and dairy, and until subsidies support plant-based foods, it's going to be really tough.
I think if we're talking about what policy measures, what concrete actions governments could take, I think all the places where government serves food, colleges, schools, cafeterias, if there is some sort of mandate that children be introduced to plant-based options, healthy, nutritious plant-based options, there will be a way for the price points to come down, because obviously there's not a lot of flexibility there on the pricing. So I think that access, that type of mandate could go a long way.
Yeah. So just to kind of wrap things up, because we have about three minutes left, one of the questions we just got is there's a longitudinal trend of consumers increasingly consuming on the go. So the number of calories consumed outside the home versus in the home has increased in the past couple of decades, of course, that COVID being, something that's pausing this trend. And are you as investors, because of this kind of pause, course correcting, or are you forging ahead with kind of food service and more convenience foods that are geared toward outside of the home? Or, I guess maybe more broadly, how COVID has shaped this space, and, if anything has kind of had long-term repercussions for the kind of capital that is being dispensed right now?
Yeah, so I'd say certainly COVID has accelerated the adoption of virtual and digitally native brands. And so that was happening. It was growing, but it has grown exponentially over COVID, where in virtual restaurants are one specific area. And we're actually doing that at Veggie Grow. We just launched a virtual restaurant called Most Veggies Taqueria, which is Mexican, all Mexican vegan food. So
when you say virtual, you mean people can order the food, or they like kind of come in, they have a virtual experience, or what is that? There's no kitchen, there's no dining room, there's no brick and mortar location. You can just order it through delivery providers. And then there's direct-to-consumer brands, delivery brands, prepared food brands that all allow you to just not leave home. And so that has accelerated, and the grocery delivery has certainly accelerated. So those are areas where certainly consumers are going to go out again and consume on the go. But this adoption of these digitally native, direct-to-consumer and virtual brands has come, and it's going to stay, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dan, you said, do you have some final thoughts before we wrap up?
I would love to add a little bit to that. I think, COVID has really changed the food system or accelerated, like TK was mentioning, in many ways. But a couple of the most interesting ones to me has been how COVID really has, I want to say saved, but let's just say like moved the category in a much more positive and sustainable direction. And that is the meal at home, fully gourmet meals like the Purple Carrots of the world and the HelloFresh. Those categories were really suffering, and a couple of the companies have actually gone out of business. And now they're doing really well because consumers started out by, they're at home, right? They started out by saying, we're going to create these amazing, incredible, healthy meals, from almost from scratch. And we're going to feed our family better. But what we're seeing that end up in is that, no consumer wants to do that 7 days a week. I mean, very few, right? You start out Monday, you did your HelloFresh or Purple Carrot. By Friday, you just really need some plant-based nuggets you can throw in the microwave and feel good about eating. And so, when we look for companies, we want to be able to have every plate, companies are delighting you at every plate. And that means, yes, we want to have the company that's helping you create your premium meals, but also the company that's giving you those nuggets that aren't going to make you feel incredibly terrible and guilty, because they're actually not bad for you. They're good for you. You can have the nuggets and feed them to your family and feel okay about it. And things that you can make in less than 5 minutes. And so it's really being a melting pot of convenience, but also, a desire to create and craft these cool plant-based meals and everything in between. So it'll be really interesting to see in the next 6 months what consumers start gravitating towards, or if this just becomes what it is, from very complicated, complex meals to incredibly simple, all within your same week.
Well, I'm super happy that Purple Carrot's doing well. I know that's an early investment for all of you. Andy is wonderful, and I'm glad it's one of the good things that came out of COVID, I guess. Dan, do you want to just say a couple things and then we'll wrap up? Or
shortly, COVID definitely increased awareness. It also increased the amount of dollars that are going into space, the amount of excitement from retailers and distributors to carry on, the amount of money that's going into manufacturing. And I think most importantly, governments around the world have recognized that the food system is broken as is. It requires a lot of solutions, and plant-based and alternative proteins in general are part of higher level conversations than I think they were a year ago.
Yeah. Well, okay, just one final thing, which is students, if you're interested in the space, it's fun being an entrepreneur, but from what I've seen, it's even funner to be an investor. So something to consider as a career option in this space as well. I learned an enormous amount from all of you doing my research, and I'm sure all of our students will learn an enormous amount in this panel. So thank you so much again for your time. And I know some of you will be at the networking session later on. And if you are students, I hope you have a chance to meet our panelists. Thank you so much.